I'd first like to apologize for how I have to film this because it is not ideal, but I have tried to film this like 5 different times and the audio doesn't work, so this is what we're gonna have to do. So I'm gonna present it like this, and yeah, I'm sorry. So anyways, I chose for my portfolio topic to do substance abuse. And the essential question that I want everyone to be thinking about while watching this, actually I don't know if everyone's going to see this, I think so, but I'm not too sure. Chris, if you're the only one watching this, think about this question throughout the presentation, look for it. Okay, and the short definition of substance abuse is addiction. It's a chronic disease characterized by drug seeking and use that is compulsive or difficult to control despite harmful consequences. And the longer definition, the first part is the same, but to add on to that is the initial decision to take drugs is voluntary, but if you take a drug long enough, it leads to brain changes that mess with your self-control, and it's hard to resist the urges. And these are persistent, which is why drug addiction is considered a relapsing disease. People in recovery from drug use disorders are at increased risk for returning to drug use even after years of not taking the drug. I accidentally stopped recording, so if there's a cut, I'm sorry. So the history. I started in 1875, and it says Liebenstein found that a drug user's highest priority was to get their next fix. This study was on morphine, and it was one of the first studies on morphine. He also found out that withdrawals ended as soon as more drug was given, so quickly reversed withdrawal symptoms. And then in the 1880s, American physicians offered coke as treatment, or cocaine, sorry, treatment for addiction. Cures became a big thing, and most of those were found to have other addictive substances in them, which I'm not sure if they knew that. I don't think that they might have, because it says alcohol, but I don't know. So it contained things such as alcohol, opium, morphine, cocaine, and cannabis. In 1914, which is around World War I, there was a big growing fear of drug abuse, which led to the Harrison Anti-Narcotics Act, and that is a federal law that regulated and taxed the production, importation, and distribution of opiates and coca product. Sorry for my sniffle. So in 1930, the NRC studied morphine, trying to find substitutes that were non-habit forming. In 1940, methadone was used to meet German needs in World War II, substituted for morphine. Methadone is an addictive substance, so they did not find a non-addictive alternative for morphine. And in the 1960s, there was a higher marijuana use, and this is where my history stops. I couldn't find a lot more in recent years. So that. Moving on to physical/psychological addiction, there are 2 types of addiction. Physical addiction is when you repeatedly use a drug until you become so dependent on it that your body can no longer function without it, and an example of this is heroin. And some of the withdrawal syndromes for physical addiction are muscle aches, runny nose, and sweating, and extended withdrawal symptoms, so this can be like, I think, a day or 2 maybe, so just longer later on, can be vomiting, diarrhea, and chills. And there's more, but those are like 3. And psychological addiction is when you have an emotional or mental attachment to a substance. An example for this is marijuana. Physical withdrawal syndromes, there isn't really not a physical withdrawal, psychological withdrawal syndromes, there's not really one except that you just really have really strong urges to take that drug again. I didn't find much for how it was diagnosed, but I did find that most places said that mental health professional used this criteria, which is the DSM-5. Substance abuse, the treatment is different for everyone because it really depends on you, and like the things in your life, what drug you're addicted to, how long you've been addicted to it, etc. There is also not a cure to addiction. It is manageable. It is a lifelong disease, so you're going to be dealing with it forever. And that's why in the beginning it said that it was easy to relapse even years after you've been sober. But it says here, like I said, the duration of treatment can range from weeks to months to years. Type, length, intensity of the drug are determined by the severity and the addiction, types of drugs, support system, personality, other social problems of an addicted person. So how common? I found out that between 1% and 2% of the entire world population has a drug use disorder. This is excluding alcohol. 55% of drug abuse disorders are related to opioids, and 25% are related to marijuana. So this could be like physical, this could be psychological if you wanted to look at it that way. It says 51.8% of the U.S. population identified as drinkers, and alcohol is the #1 most abused substance. So some myths about drug addiction. One of them is drug addiction is a voluntary behavior. The initial choice to take drugs is voluntary, but after it changes your brain and your self-control, it becomes a non-voluntary. It's out of your control at that point. Another myth is that you have to want treatment for it to be effective, and research shows that people who enter treatment programs with a high pressure do comparatively better in treatment than people who go willingly. Another myth is going to treatment will fix the problem, and this could be true in that you could become sober, but as I've said before, drug addiction is a lifelong disease, so it's never going to completely fix or take away that disease, but it'll help you cope with it and show you ways not to relapse. And I chose this topic because addiction has affected me pretty much my entire life. Both of my parents have had problems with addiction, and so I've seen it before and I know some things about it, and that's why I decided to choose it. And these are my works cited. So yeah, that is my presentation. Thank you for watching.